Are you a no-show boss from hell who terrorizes staffers?
Oh my goodness. Listen, I know that I have arrived, honey. That is the way that I see this. Because as Beyonce says, if they're not talking about you, then obviously you must not be doing anything. It's funny that you point out that he doesn't even know the difference in the test that he takes in an IQ test, yet he's the one that's suggesting that I need an IQ test. Not to mention, I mean, based on the fact that my daddy isn't the one that got me into my schooling, and the fact that I have a little bit more education than he does, meaning I have more earned degrees than he does. I don't really have this idea of I'm just wanting to know whether or not Trump is a creep, which I think we already know that. I don't know that we necessarily need to talk to her to know that he's a creep.
Listen, Donald Trump is a piece of shit. Okay, we know that. Yes, he is. But in a functioning democracy, he still would not be able to get away with this. But he's been able to get away with this because the House Republicans are complicit. He's been able to get away with this because Senate Republicans are complicit. But most importantly, the courts, especially the Supreme Court, is complicit.
It's funny that you point out that he doesn't even know the difference in the test that he takes in an IQ test, yet he's the one that's suggesting that I need an IQ test. Not to mention, I mean, based on the fact that my daddy isn't the one that got me into my schooling, and the fact that I have a little bit more education than he does, meaning I have more earned degrees than he does, I don't have time to play games with him. And the fact that you are the sitting president of the United States, and for whatever reason, you are waking up before I'm even awake on today so that you could try to drag me on your bootleg website, like, it doesn't even make sense to me. Like, why is it that people take him seriously? And then the bad part is that when we get 4 years from now and it's time to elect somebody, unfortunately, the entire country will look at whoever is running on the Democratic side, and they will have one bar that they use to say, you've got to meet this standard or this level, yet you allow this fool in. Frankly, anybody can be president after him. I mean, we're talking about somebody with 34 count convictions of felonies, in addition to the fact that somebody who literally does not know how to govern or doesn't want to govern, doesn't want to do what's right. So every time you look around, he's invoking emergency powers. And frankly, if you listen to him, you would be concerned not only about his mental acuity, but you also would be concerned. I'm not concerned that he's an unintelligent man. I know he's unintelligent. That part is clear. But like, I'm wondering also, like, is it dementia Don that we're getting? Is it just dumb Don that we're getting? Like, I don't know, but there is a problem. Like Houston, we have a problem. Listen, my constituents don't have any concerns, but if he wants to do a test, yeah, so long as it's real people that's administering, not the bootleg doctors that claim he was perfect.
The New York Post has a story today that has a headline that reads, "No show boss from hell who terrorizes staffers," referring to you. Are you a no-show boss from hell who terrorizes staffers?
Oh my goodness. Listen, I know that I have arrived, honey. That is the way that I see this. Because as Beyonce says, if they're not talking about you, then obviously you must not be doing anything. You know what? This is just more slander, more nonsense, more lies. And honestly, I don't think that the New York Post would probably be the first ones to be able to figure out if I was a boss from hell. I just don't think so. I have happily served on the state level for I did 2 years there, and now I am at year 2.5 on the federal level. And so 5.5 years in, all of a sudden, I'm this terrible person and terrible boss. Yeah, I don't think so. And ultimately, it wouldn't be the New York Post. Now, here's the reality. It is very difficult to work on the Hill, no matter who you are, whether you're a member, as you and I were joking before we got on camera about all of the scrutiny that comes with being not only woman, but being young and being a Black woman. Yeah, there's a lot of scrutiny that comes my way, and it comes my way from all different angles. But when people start talking about you, that's when you know that you are obviously getting under their skin. So I am not going to give up. There's a song that I like to quote every once in a while. It says, "Your hate is my motivation." So
So keep hating. All it does is motivate me to continue to do what I do, which is to be loud and proud on behalf of the American people. This is not a federal issue. This is absolutely a state issue, as these are state lawmakers, number one. Number two, there's a lot of things that our FBI could be doing, such as keeping us safe, instead of doing the bidding of a corrupt president who has decided that he doesn't want any accountability, and he knows that the persons within his party are not willing to hold him accountable.
Why?
It doesn't concern me that they are trying to do this, because obviously I was a part of the quorum break in 2021. And so when I participated in that quorum break, there were various things that they tried to submit to the Supreme Court at that time. And the Texas Supreme Court at that time, which for the most part has the same makeup as it did in 2021, it specifically said that these were political issues and therefore they had no jurisdiction to get involved. I don't think that this will be any different. One of the things that MAGA is really good about is they always want to put on a show. So it's like, grabbing people off the streets. That's about putting on a show. Doing things like, oh, we're going to kick you out of office is about putting on a show. I truly believe that not every portion of democracy has failed just yet. And frankly, the only part that hasn't fully kind of succumbed at this point is the courts in general. Any wins that we have experienced on behalf of democracy thus far have been in the courts. And so while I don't necessarily have the utmost faith in all courts, I do know that there is recent precedents specifically about quorum breaking for Texans. I mean, if there's anybody that understands breaking the law, it is definitely the one that was under federal investigation for I don't know how many years and was subject to state felony indictments for close to probably 8 years in the state of Texas. But honestly, we've done quorum breaks before. And again, there's never been anyone that even tried to presume or tried to pretend as if this was bribery. Listen, these are people that are out there. They are working on behalf of their constituents. And when we are not in a regular session in Texas, we are allowed to take donations. We are one of the few states that so long as you're in session, regular session, you're not allowed to take any money. I just can't listen to any Republican right now. If you are not a Republican that had a problem with the fact that the U.S. House decided that they would go on recess for an entire month because they did not want to deal with the Epstein files, then you absolutely have no place to speak. Now, I will be honest and tell you that there were some Republicans, mostly on the federal level, that absolutely said in a very bipartisan way that they believed in the transparency and they believed that these files should absolutely be turned over to us. So all of a sudden, you want to talk about this? It's the same thing with Congressman Kiley, who all of a sudden wants to file a bill saying, hey, we can't do mid-decade redistricting only because he believes that he's on the chopping block in California if California does what they're saying that they're going to do. So here's the deal. Time out for Democrats just sitting there and being the bigger person and absolutely doing the moral thing, the right thing, when Republicans are playing with a completely different playbook. We refuse to be anybody's doormat. So I got news for them. I'm not going to let you walk over me, because walking over me means you're walking over and you're stepping on my constituents. And some things are bigger than any titles. And one of those things is absolutely democracy and fighting for it and making sure we do everything to preserve it, even if it means that we got to get in the mud and play the same game that y'all are playing.
The awareness around the issue is really important. People need to understand that, number one, Democrats are fighting back. Number two, they also need to understand that the people that claim to be the party of law and order are nothing but lawless thugs. The fact that they are investing our taxpayer dollars and resources into hunting down duly elected officials instead of, say, going after pedophiles. The fact that they have a bigger issue with those that decide that they want to make sure that they can raise an awareness and raise the voices and issues of their constituents over protecting, say, pedophiles. I mean, the fact that they can't see the difference in why it was that we had to go on recess early versus why it is that these Texas Democrats are real heroes in this moment who are not even fighting for their own seats. This isn't even personal for them. This is about our democracy. This tells you which party is actually the party of morality, and it is absolutely the Democrats. So here's the reality. We understand that JD Vance is in Indiana right now trying to twist arms so that they can get 2 seats there. We understand that he has been putting pressure on Missouri to try to get 1 seat there. In fact, there are rumors that they already have the map for Missouri. We understand that Florida has already decided that they're going to move forward. So these people do not care about doing what is right by the people that elected them and put them into power. Because when I say that I'm fighting, it's not even a partisan fight that I'm engaging in. I'm engaging in a fight for democracy, a fight that allows people to be held accountable when it is that the people are not liking what you're doing. And we know what the poll numbers are. We know what it is when the Republicans show up in their very red districts and their constituents are coming out and yelling at them and telling them that they hate the big ugly bill. We know what it is. When they thought they were being so smart and sitting us out, there was still this hearing that was set, and it allowed for this subcommittee to go ahead in a bipartisan way subpoena those files. It took Comer a little bit before he actually sent the subpoena off, but he did finally send the subpoena off, and so I believe they get up to 30 days or so to return the documents to us. And that letter just went out. So we don't have them yet, or at least I've not been informed that we have them. And I don't anticipate that they're going to turn anything in early. But I do want to make a comment about this other kind of request that we're making. I think that for so long, there's so many women that were not believed, or if they were believed, their pain and trauma was minimized. This is why we saw the slap on the wrist for Epstein himself. And this is why now we see that this convicted felon who was given 20 years is now getting the pamper treatment. I do think it is important that we allow those that actually want to be heard, because we do live in a crazy environment where, unfortunately, sometimes speaking out and telling your truth can lead to people wishing or trying to cause some harm to you. But I do think that it is time for those that are survivors and want to be heard, for them to absolutely have a platform that is open to hearing their truth. And I personally really want to know about any and everybody. I don't really have this idea of I'm just wanting to know whether or not Trump is a creep, which I think we already know that. I don't know that we necessarily need to talk to her to know that he's a creep. But I want to know, like, how is it that this was allowed to go on? I want to know how deep this goes. I want to know, like, if she's aware as to why, Epstein was let go with a slap on the wrist. Like, these are the things that I would want to dig into, so that any and everybody that was involved in the cover up, because the crime is absolutely horrific. But the problem is that we've had so many people that have covered for these criminals, just like we have those that are sitting in the U.S. House, the U.S. Senate, as well as the Supreme Court, that are covering for the criminal in chief that's currently in the White House.
That's all for today. Thank you. If you want global news to keep you up to date on any new developments, please subscribe our channel and forward our content with your friends on social media and email. Thank you very much for keep supporting me. Stay safe, be blessed. Namaste.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.